Alright, so where did the reign of terror lead? Where we left off, it led to Robespierre's death at the hands of the guillotine. So the machine or the device that killed as many as 40,000 people during his reign of terror. Robespierre is ultimately going to meet his own fate with the guillotine in 1794. In 1795, you're going to see a third form of government being formed that is going to be known as the Directory. The directory will consist of 5 members, more of the moderate class from the French political organizations. And even though that's the directory, the members of the directory will use their position of political power for their own personal wealth and gain, the French people welcome the directory and this change because it brings a period of stability to French politics, which hasn't been seen since before 1789. If you recall, the directory will now be the third form of government that the French people have seen since 1789. We don't count the National Assembly as a new form of government because it was actually, the Third Estate and some supporters of the Third Estate. But we count the Legislative Assembly, we count the National Convention, led by the Jacobins, and now we are seeing the Directory. The Directory will ultimately lead to the rise of another important historical figure known as Napoleon Bonaparte. And so this video will look at the rise and fall of Napoleon Bonaparte from 1795, as he is hailed as the savior of the French Republic, to when he leads a coup d'etat and takes control of the government. We will look at Napoleon as ruler of France, as Napoleon adds new lands to his empire. And then if the video allows us, we will also look at events that ultimately contributed to the downfall of Napoleon. And so let's look at Napoleon and trace his rise to power first. Started in 1795, where he led soldiers against the French royalists who were attacking the National Convention. So, in 1795, Napoleon led these soldiers against these French rebel royalists who were attacking the National Convention. And when he turns, back, or he meets these rebel royalists with cannonballs and his own army, and he turns them back, for this action, he was thought of as savior, or as the savior of the French Republic. And he later is given his own, portion of the French army to lead in excursions against the Austrian forces, against the Kingdom of Sardinia, which is located in the Mediterranean Sea, and he's very successful in these excursions against Austria and Sardinia. He also, in an attempt to disrupt, British trade interest with India and to further French trade interest, he is sent to attack British positions in Egypt. However, he does fail in Egypt and is turned back, but he is successful in keeping the news of his defeat away from French newspapers. And so when Napoleon comes back to France in 1799, the Directory has lost control of the political situation and confidence of the French people. And Napoleon is going to have a bunch of his friends, really encouraging him to seize control of this opportunity, or seize, control of this moment, and take over or take control of the French government. So in 1799, the troops that are under Napoleon's command surround the legislature and drive out most of the delegates that made up of the 2 houses in the legislature. The members that were left, or the lawmakers that were left, voted to dissolve the Directory and establish a new form of government in which there are 3 councils. Napoleon being one of those. So this is kind of, I guess you could say, it's almost like the triumvirate that we had talked about or discussed with Julius Caesar. quickly, though, Napoleon is going to name himself first consul, and in doing this, is this sudden grab of power, which will be known as a coup d'état, which means in French a blow to the state. So anytime you have this grab of power or you have an overthrow of the status quo in politics, it's a lot of times seen or labeled as a coup d'état, and that's what Napoleon did, and that's how he got control of the government. It was a sudden seizure of power, and Napoleon pretended to be the rightfully elected leader of France. In 1800, he had a vote of the people that was held, or a plebiscite that was held to approve a new constitution. In this vote of the people, they overwhelmingly voted to support this new constitution, which is essentially gave Napoleon complete power, or the same power that a dictator would have. So the first thing that Napoleon does when he gains complete power is that he's going to use some of the revolution's ideas in his own government at home. And some of the first things that he wanted to do was he established a more efficient method of tax collection. Remember, one of the revolution's ideas, or the causes of the revolution, was that the French government was in a lot of debt and they needed a steady supply of money. And so this more efficient method of tax collection granted or ensured that the French government would have that steady supply of revenue that would take care of some of the costs. He also established a better, or a national banking system, and so this would ensure sound financial management in the terms of government, or in the areas of government expenditures. Napoleon also ended, or sought out to end corruption in government. He kicked out all corrupt government officials, and he set up these lycées, or these government-run schools, which were open to members of all social classes. And upon graduation of these schools, they were appointed to public office on the basis of merit, rather than on who your family, or what family you were from, or what your social status was. And so these ideas of equality, these ideas of liberty, the ideas of smarter financial decisions by the government, Napoleon used these ideas in his government. He rejected some of the ideas, or discarded some of the changes introduced to the revolution in terms of the clergy and the Roman Catholic Church. Napoleon is going to respond or is going to sign an agreement with the Pope, and establish a new relationship between the church and the state. This new relationship is going to reject the Catholic Church's influence in any of the national affairs within the French government. However, it's going to recognize that the Catholic Church has a large amount of influence in French society, and so recognizing the power of the church, or recognizing the influence of the church, is going to appease a lot of these French Catholics who had been disillusioned by some of the actions taken by the National Assembly when they took away the church's lands. They made the clergy, made the clergy their offices open to public election, thereby fusing the church and the state together. Napoleon is going to kind of disregard that and establish that separation between church and state. Napoleon also hopes not to just make his, not to make France stronger at home, but he's also hoping or dreaming to establish an empire in both Europe and the New World. And so Napoleon does succeed in doing this, and he sees some success in adding some lands, and he also has some failures and setbacks that we'll discuss as well. The last domestic reform that I failed to mention, and that it's just remembering, is that and one of probably his greatest work was his comprehensive set of uniform laws that were established all over France. And this is known as the Napoleonic Code. And while this Napoleonic Code actually restricted freedom of speech and freedom of the press, some of these ideas that were promoted during the French Revolution, that once again, that sense of stability, that uniform set of laws, established all over France, no matter where you're from or who you are, you have to follow the same rules, did enjoy some success and was greeted with a sense of approval by the French people, who once again were desperate for some sense of stability and for a strong leader, in which Napoleon embodied both aspects of that.